Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 133. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Jill. Chris and I are your hosts for this podcast and the founders of the Becoming Ellie community.
We decided to name our community Becoming Ellie because Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. And we thought, hey, we want to be like Ellie.
Yes, we do. You can find out more about the Becoming Ellie community and this podcast at our website, becomingellie.com. And Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I.
Be sure to sign up for our newsletter while you're there. That way you'll know about new episodes and anything else that's new with Jill and I and the whole Becoming Ellie community.
Today, we're learning a lot about treating inflammation in our bodies.
Yes, we talk with Dr. Shivani Gupta about improving our health through food and lifestyle. Let's go to the podcast. Dr. Shivani Gupta has practiced Ayurvedic medicine for over 20 years and is an expert in fusing Eastern and Western practices to help our bodies achieve equilibrium. She has both a master's and a Ph.D. in Ayurvedic studies.
When opioids, muscle relaxers, and injections only worsened a sports injury, Dr. Shivani decided to rebuild her body naturally. She created her own line of natural Ayurvedic supplements when she failed to find an effective natural product on the market. She applied this approach to healing a leaky gut and an autoimmune condition as well.
She works with physicians, including orthopedic and spinal surgeons, rheumatologists, and functional medicine doctors to help patients from CrossFit athletes to baby boomers reduce chronic pain and acute and low-grade inflammation, prevent surgery, and optimize their health.
She is the CEO and founder of Fusionary Formulas, an Ayurvedic supplement company. She is also the host of the Fusionary Health podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Shivani. It's great to have you join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's great to talk with you. Let's start talking about Ayurvedic medicine. What is Ayurveda?
So Ayurveda is a system of medicine and health and healing from India that's over 5,000 years old. So just like in China, they have traditional Chinese medicine, they have acupuncture, qigong, these healing modalities. India had its own entire system, and it was based on plant medicine. It's based on the gut and the digestive system being the center of all health. It teaches us nutrition, detoxification, how to optimize sleep, the circadian rhythm, how to use self-care tools like tongue scrapers and dry brushing and oil pulling to really build a preventive lifestyle that can give us the vibrant health that we want over our longevity.
Thank you.
It sounds a lot like what people are worrying about often today.
True. Very true.
Yeah, 5,000 years later.
Yes. So how does that complement traditional medicine, Western medicine?
In Western medicine, we have a lot of things that we solve so well, right? In Western medicine, their medicines work very effectively. Surgery is very effective. There's a lot of tools at the hands of Western medicine where many of us in the functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and the integrative modalities see it is that Western medicine has a line, and they do beautifully on their side of that line. And then there's this other entire side of the line where preventive lifestyle habits, chronic disease, autoimmune conditions, all of these things are better supported by using an entirely different toolkit. And so that's where I like to come in and say, look, way before we need to run to a doctor and be told we have something-itis, which just means inflammation. When they say, oh, you have arthritis, gastritis, bursitis, something-itis, that's just inflammation that has had an opportunity to weave its not so good magic on us and result in a diagnosis. And instead, we could look at a preventive lifestyle as our foundation of health. We could invest in good sleep every day, gut healing practices every day, look at our nutrition as the fuel our body needs to age with grace. and to keep our strength and vitality over time. So I think Western medicine is phenomenal at what they do well. And I think it's our job to go look for the toolkits our individual bodies need to stay healthy over the long haul.
You mentioned a sports injury. What type of injury was it? And what did you try? And how were you able to finally improve it?
After having kids, which is always quite a journey, I had all these struggles. I had gained 40 pounds when I had Anya, my first child. I had all this excess weight on my body. So I kept running to the doctor and saying, hey, I have feet problems. They said, that's plantar fasciitis. I was like, okay. Then one day I was setting up for her birthday party. And the day before the party, I threw out my back. And all of a sudden I felt this spasm. I didn't know it was a spasm. I felt like my back crumpled on the inside, and I laid on the floor completely out for the count. And I'm looking at my 1-year-old like, oh God, we're in trouble. Couldn't move. And I was so traumatized. I was like, my body, I was 30 when I had her. I was like, well, how can my body give out on me? I've always been healthy and into exercise. And I thought I live a preventive lifestyle. And my body traditionally has not always done what I would expect it to do. So I was always someone on guard about my health. And so I went to the doctor. They said, we just want you to take ibuprofen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was like, oh, I'll listen. Sure. I took it. And then all of a sudden, after that 7 days, every time I ate, my stomach hurt. And I'm like, how can that be? What did I do? What's wrong with my stomach? And I finally tied the things together. And I was like, oh God, wait a minute. So you fixed my problems, but you caused a new problem. That's not okay. Stomach hurting is like the worst. I need a gut that works. That's my immune system. Don't you know? I've always had to manage this. That was my turning point where I was like, wait a minute. I know I'm going to hurt myself in this life many times. I know myself. I'm clumsy. I love to work out and I irritate my shoulder every year. I do all sorts of things. I'm going to have to find a natural solution to this because this is not going to work.
And what did you do?
Then I built my supplement company. So I was studying Ayurvedic medicine as my master's degree at the time. I was in all the classes, and in herbology, they started talking about turmeric. And I was like, yeah, we all eat turmeric. Everyone sprinkles it on their food. We all know it's great. Turmeric lattes are popular. But then when we went into the science, I was like, oh, okay. And my advisor at the time was like, you should really do a PhD. I want you to pick a topic. And I was like, I know I want to write books and change the world, but do I need doctor in front of my name? He goes, yes, you do. And so I picked the topic of turmeric as my PhD. So then I spent these 3 years during that time studying and diving into turmeric. And I realized, wow, this was the solution all along. Like this was what I needed. If I had baseline turmeric, I would have had baseline reduction in inflammation, wouldn't have had any itises, and thus wouldn't have been set up for that problem. And also every time I have a problem, it can be my solution. It can be my natural painkiller that my body will take too well. And so I finished the PhD, and then I realized I didn't trust anyone who made a turmeric supplement. I was like, who do I trust? I kept buying products, testing them. And finally I thought, what if I made my own and I proved to Western medicine that we could use a natural solution in orthopedics that we can offer as an adjunct, and then people can come off their drugs just sooner. It's okay to take them. There's great solutions in there, but come off them sooner or choose the natural solution. And so that's what I proved. I built Fusionary, my supplement company, about 7 years ago, and we win at chronic joint pain. And then we win at a lot of other health issues as well.
You said baseline turmeric. What does that mean? The baseline part.
In my case, I've always had an immune system that didn't support me. Like I catch everything. If I go to a party and hug 10 people, I'll be sick for a week. If I go to a conference, if I fly on a plane, I recently in the last couple of years finally discovered it's leaky gut that is my autoimmune condition that leads to my immune system not feeling supported all the time or being supported. And so to me, to build a baseline of turmeric in the system means I have done the work to reduce my systemic inflammation to the point that my gut is never inflamed. My body is not inflamed. When pathogens or stressors or environmental factors or anything comes at me, I already have a defense system in place, and that defense system will guard me.
All right. That makes sense. And your supplements, your company's called Fusionary Formula. So what does that mean, Fusionary?
When I was creating it, my whole family is actually Western medicine MDs and surgeons. That's who I'm surrounded by 24/7 here in South Florida. And to me, I don't have a problem with Western medicine. I thank them every day for all the times they've saved me from my troubles. But I'm also now very much a very authentic, driven Ayurvedic practitioner who wants the world to know what Ayurveda is and what it can mean for us. And so fusing my worlds has always been a big part of what I do. Like, how do we find the compromise, the middle ground, the moderate place in which we can both coexist and respect each other for what we're both amazing at? So fusionary, it's fusing the worlds, because sometimes we do use incredible Western ingredients alongside our Ayurvedic ingredients. Or I take Ayurvedic ingredients and I use only what modern science is proving to be valid, because then Western medicine will embrace it. And so my goal is for all of Western medicine to say, yes, I'll recommend your turmeric supplement to my patients because it's validated by science and I know turmeric works and my patients are inflamed. So that was the mindset.
And how are the supplements made and how did you develop them?
So when I went to build my company, I had a partner who is in Jacksonville, Florida. He's an MD. He owns a factory and he makes his supplement line for tens of thousands of doctors' offices. And so I sat with him and I was like, look, I want to make a turmeric, but I will only make it if it's better than everybody else's. Otherwise, I should just tell people to go buy those other people's, because I have young children. I don't need to do this idea right now. But I was like, I really want to prove my point that orthopedics didn't have to kill my gut with ibuprofen, that they had another tool that they could have offered. So we went around sourcing, researching, and we encountered a curcumin out of India that's at a 98% grade potency. And so what people don't know is out of the entire turmeric plant, only 3% is the curcuminoids, 3%. So whatever turmeric you're sprinkling, 3% is going to give you the most benefit. Out of that 3% of curcuminoids, the one curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation in the system. And so how many of us are going to get that 1% if we're using it in our food? Very few of us. And when you look at the supplements out there on the market, most of them are giving you curcuma longa, which is just turmeric, the plant. They're saying 1,500 milligrams curcuma longa. What they're saying is you could have bought this at the corner store and sprinkled it on your chicken, which I find infuriating because that's ripping people off. Then they'll give you curcuminoids and they'll trademark it and they'll change the aspects of it to do that. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to honor plant medicine. So I sourced a curcumin at a 98% grade potency, gave it at a full 500 milligrams per capsule, and made sure we used the minimum amount of excipients we needed to run it through the machines, to the point that I gunked up the machines and the factory got so mad. And they're like, you're driving us nuts, Shivani. And I was like, well, I need to honor myself. I don't want additives in my product. We don't need a filler. And so I drive the factory nuts because I'm always pushing so much product into the capsule. I don't even leave enough room for the fillers. And they're like, you're nuts. And I'm always trying to enhance and improve my product. Fusionary has two main products, turmeric gold and inflammation relief. And a lot of people take that combo for that pain. So that's how I built it. And I built those two formulas 7 years ago. And they were so effective in orthopedics and chiropractic and functional medicine. I haven't really changed the formulations. I did like one change a few years ago just because I wanted to bump up some ingredients. And now all I do is if I can source it any more potent, I do. It's very expensive to make. It's medical grade ingredients that are very well certified and reviewed. But to me, that's the impact I wanted to make. So I'm really happy with it.
Wow. Again, could you repeat the two supplements that you make?
Yeah. So turmeric gold is like a daily preventive I made. So people like me who want a daily preventive on board can take that one. And then I made inflammation relief because people are inflamed. And if you know you're inflamed, that's the right one to take. It has a symphony of Ayurvedic herbs like ginger, boswellia, guduchi. It has the curcumin. It has amla. And so it goes after the inflammation in the system in a good way. It doesn't have any negative effects. But then a lot of people are so inflamed that my orthopedic docs started giving them both. And they call that the pain solution bundle. So now we have the pain solution bundle. I have a joint repair bundle. And then over time, I realized that inflamed people who have joint pain don't sleep well. And I wouldn't know that. I don't have chronic joint pain, but I started getting the complaints. I only get pain when I cause it at the gym. But I wanted to fix sleep because sleep, according to my research, is when we clear our inflammation. So if we're not getting good sleep, we won't clear the inflammation. And then we're not winning regardless. So then I developed a whole sleep line in my products as well.
Oh, okay, great.
So you help your clients harness the power of plants and use the at-home remedies to reduce inflammation naturally. So what actually causes inflammation?
Sure. There's a lot of factors. So number one, I would say is environmental factors. So just living on planet Earth in this century or decade is problematic because air quality, water quality, EMFs and technology assaulting the body in a sense because our body's not ready to deal with all this. Toxins that exist in our water and air and all those things impact us. A lot of our habits, maybe we get a lot of medical scans, maybe we fly a lot. There's lots of factors that will externally affect the body. Number two, stress. Stress causes inflammation. Number three, poor sleep. And in COVID, people got horrible sleep. And even before that, and now after that with market stressors, I would say. And then also what we eat, there are a lot of foods that are inflammatory. And in modern day society, we want what's quick and we want what's easy and we want what's fast and what's convenient. The problem is all the processed foods that are out there, especially if they have genetic, GMO, if they are overly processed, if they have additives and things, these are all foreign ingredients to the body. So our body's like, what is that? I don't know what that is. I'm going to attack it. That's an inflammatory response from the body. And so food can be a big one. So a lot of what I teach is how to heal the gut, how to reduce our inflammation, how to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. The top 5 inflammatory foods are gluten, dairy, red meat, alcohol, and sugar. So most people don't want to hang out with me because they think, I'm going to judge them.
You certainly can put a damper on a party.
They're like, don't look at my Diet Coke, Shivani. I'm like, I'm not looking. Enjoy your treat thing. I have treats too. I love Chardonnay and nachos. I say that to everybody so they can feel comfortable with the fact that we all have the things we love. But I don't allow myself to have the things that I love that aren't good for me or my body more than once or twice a week because the price is too great on my system. And just because those are the top 5 doesn't mean they're inflammatory to you. Each person should take a 2-week elimination diet and test which food is their problem food. And then just producing that one inflammatory food, even 80%, can create such a shift in our bodies and health, then you might not need supplements or any other help because you made the change with your diet.
So that is a way we can prevent inflammation.
Correct. And reduce it systemically because there's always going to be some. The body's always going to have an inflammatory response to foreign things. But what I like to do is build stress resilience, build an ironclad gut, build a system where my inflammation is so low that, okay, I can have horribly stressful days, but my system shouldn't react and then I fall sick.
When you were talking about what causes inflammation, you said something and it just made me think of a day I had recently where I went to the dentist and they said, oh, it's time for your x-rays. So they, slapped the vest on me and took my x-rays. Then I left there and I went to our local hospital medical system to get a scan done that my doctor had ordered. And I thought, boy, this is quite the day for
radiation
bombardment. Yes.
Sure.
So given that kind of thing, would you just say, make sure you're taking your daily turmeric supplement, or would that be actually kick it up to what's your advice on those kinds of things?
We're all going to have some level of radiation exposure in our lives. Certainly if we're well and we need less scans, that's better.
Yes.
I think at the core of it, Ayurveda teaches that nature can heal all things. So if that was a day I was going to have, I would have just made sure I walked in nature in the morning, body is optimized, the sun put its vitamin D in me, and I'm strong and healthy and vibrant. One scan, next scan, that evening again, walk for 30 minutes in fresh air, maybe even grounding myself, walking barefoot in the grass for 5-10 minutes really grounds us. If you live near water, I try to go to the beach every week and just be near water. That's healing. When it comes to radiation, there are a lot of people who teach on this. I'm not the expert, but I think my intuition says we would use charcoal. So there's charcoal supplements, there's charcoal powders that people would use to detox. But sometimes these scans are not such a huge deal. And so really just having that baseline of health is great. And then nature can be a powerful clearer of anything.
Yes. Okay. I wasn't really suggesting that I thought I was in some sort of danger, but I'm just trying to live a healthy life. And it was an unusual day for me to have two different things going on at the same time.
Yeah. And I've had
before noon.
Right.
I had a surgery once for a fibroid. It grew to 10 centimeters. I just happen to be a high estrogen woman, and post kids, the fibroid just grew. My husband was like, you'll be operating on that. And I was like, what? No, I'm anti-surgery. So I tried all my natural ways. I didn't win. So finally I was like, okay, yeah, I can't have that thing sitting on my bladder. That's a problem. So I went and got the surgery, and the whole surgery, there was a live camera, live radiation for the whole procedure. So he on camera could direct where he needed to go laparoscopically to heal me. And I was like, wow, you were scared of x-rays. You just went under a 30-minute high dose thing coming at you. Okay. And sometimes these are the prices we pay for the health issues that just develop. It's not my fault I gained a fibroid. I have to do the work to then just stay my healthiest, you know?
And that's a perfect example of what you were saying about the combination of Western medicine.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I try so hard. You give me a health problem, I will battle to the end like a warrior. And then at the final last door, I'm like, well, I did my everything. I put every resource in. I accept that this is going to be the solution. Now that I've mentally committed that that's my solution, I will train for that like it's a marathon. I will show up at peak health. Then you may cut me open. And my recovery will be a fully Ayurvedic recovery. I will do a gut healing protocol, heal for 3 weeks with calmness and intention. Then I should be able to walk back into my normal life perfect. And that I've done a few times. I've been under the knife a second time, and that happened. I trained for it like a marathon. Result was phenomenal. And then I could go on. So that's how I encourage people is like, please think about surgery as a pinnacle moment in your life where you have an opportunity to come out unscathed. And if you don't think about it that way, don't complain when you have the aftershocks, because cutting the body is a big deal.
It is a trauma to the body.
Yes.
If you're in a state where your body is inflamed, what do you recommend for actually reducing that inflammation? And how do we know when we're back into health? And I don't want to say how do we measure it, but how do we know what we're doing?
Yeah. So inflammation in the body shows up in different ways for all of us. Some people, they get low-grade fevers. My body doesn't mount fevers. It's not usually my thing. Some of us get joint pain. We'll feel aches and pains. Like for me, my neck and shoulders will get tight. And I'm like, oh, well, that was probably just stress, but why hasn't it gone away? What does that mean? Why won't it just dissipate? Some of us wake up more achy and stiff in the morning, and it takes a few minutes. Like I can't wake up and just move. My feet, I still have seasons of plantar fasciitis where I'm like, oh my God, that really hurts. It feels like I'm going to break my feet when I step on them. And I'm like, oh, that's called systemic inflammation. Would you like to take your turmeric today? Would you like to start getting with the program? So even I have those moments, but our body will give us signals: brain fog, headaches, low-grade fevers, chronic joint pain, swelling of the joints, achiness and stiffness. And the problem is most of us call this aging. And we're like, oh, I'm aging. That just sucks. I guess I'll deal with it. Which means I'm not going to make any lifestyle changes or address it. I will just accept this fate, become less mobile, less vibrant, less willing to go do things. And thus this becomes an endless cycle where then you're moving less and less. You're causing more inflammation and you're stuck in a cycle. Also, nowadays we have a new term. We call it inflammaging. Inflammation plus aging.
Oh, I have never heard of that.
Yeah. So inflammaging, if you Google it, is a great new term because we're calling it aging. Truly, it's the effects of inflammation that has accumulated over time. And we don't realize that it's inflammation. And so that's why I love teaching this topic. Because I'm like, okay, everyone, we are not aging and thus we can't do things. If we just address the inflammation and we understood that we have oxidation in the system over time. So when we feel tired and stiff, that's just rusting of the system. We could take plants, herbs, foods that undo that oxidation. And thus it's like, what do you call that stuff that you put to anti-rust? You know, like WD-40 ourselves.
Yeah, oil.
Right. Oil.
Yeah. And we can undo it.
Lubricant.
And then we are this lubricated, happy system that works more beautifully. So those are the signs of inflammation in the body that we wrongly sometimes diagnose ourselves as, oh, this is just fate. It's not. I think we can work past it. We can do more yoga, Pilates, exercise, movement, walking. We can be in nature more. Nature alone is a powerful healer and it's free. Walking is free. Downloading a meditation app or on YouTube, listening to one to calm our minds, which calms our system, free. So I love teaching all those ways to heal ourselves. One of the best ways to reduce inflammation is cut the inflammatory foods. Another great way, sleep. Invest in good sleep. So that means getting a Fitbit or a device and measuring your sleep so you know how it is. Most people think their sleep is fine. And I hate that word fine. I'm like, it's not fine until you measure it and show me that it's fine. Most of us think our sleep is fine, but we're still waking up cranky, tired, and slow starts to our day. You could wake up joyful. You could wake up like, wow, I can't wait to see what I get to do today. So there's different levels of vibrancy to sleep. And I encourage everyone to measure it once and understand that. You could take phenomenal turmeric. Of course, I think that because I studied turmeric. You could also use so many other super herbs and super spices. Here in the West, we're so used to superfoods. So salmon and blueberries and spinach, we call those the superfoods. But in Ayurveda, we have ginger, we have cumin, we have so many other herbs and spices that are powerful. We have an herb called ashwagandha. It's an adaptogen. It's neurocognitive protective. It helps reduce inflammation. It does so much. I put it in my deep sleep tea because I'm obsessed with it and I keep wanting to make more things with it. I just think we can reach into the herbs and plant toolbox, which I call the mindful medicine chest, and find more solutions that put our body at homeostasis and healed and settled. And then we're not constantly battling inflammation on all fronts, because inflammation is the root cause of chronic metabolic disease. So when we get these diagnoses in our 50s, 60s plus, where the doctor's like, oh, you have cancer. Oh, you have diabetes. Oh, you have heart disease, all these things. Those are all things that were set in motion in our 20s and 30s. I don't think it's our fault. I think that there's so much in this society coming at us that causes a lot of issues. And maybe our own family patterns dictated how we eat and what we eat. And so my job is just to bring that awareness to, can we reduce inflammation consciously and thus have a different health trajectory overall?
Well, that brings up a question that I have about your 7-day inflammation detox challenge. And can you describe that? What's that about?
Yeah, so I love talking on inflammation, but sometimes we all need someone to hold our hands and show us one step at a time, one day at a time, what to do. So I designed that as a way for people to just sign up. It's free. And you'll get 7 tips. You'll get 7 emails with 7 videos. And in each one, I outline one thing per day we can do. And a lot of people will do it 3 times in a row. Like I've done it at the beginning of the year and I'll just do it 3 times because it's hard the first time. I'm going to ask.
You mean like 3 weeks in a row or? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's free. You can just keep watching the same videos one at a time.
Got it.
And so if you reduce your inflammation, like let's say 10% the first week, you're going to start to feel better. All of a sudden you're like, wow, life feels easier. I have less brain fog. My brain's working better. My sleep's a little better. I'm in pain less. So I have more energy. Then if you do it again and take another 10% of your inflammation down, feels that much better. So I created that in the hopes that if people understood the simple lifestyle shifts we can make by honoring sleep, hydrating more, walking more, reducing inflammatory foods, then all of a sudden you'd build it into your life as a rhythm. Ayurveda's whole point is to show us our life can be in a rhythm with nature. If we rise with the sun, we set with that sun. We can have such a powerful, healthy life if we flow with the rhythms of life and nature, as opposed to battling them.
The 7-day inflammation detox challenge is something that's available on your website that anyone can take a look at. Yeah,
at ShivaniGupta.com at my website. I have sleep guides, inflammation guides, the 7-day challenge, all those things, everything in one place, and a lot of videos. I like to create videos that will just teach these topics so that we can implement them.
If you remove the inflammatory foods, the gluten, dairy, red meat, alcohol, sugar, and I know you just mentioned like the superfoods, but then also the spices and herbs, the ginger, cumin, and the turmeric. So I gather it's not sufficient to just sprinkle turmeric on your food, that you're not going to get enough quantities of things. And would that be true with ginger as well?
Ginger, I look at differently. So Turmeric, my whole dissertation was on it. If we want the significant reduction of inflammation that we're seeking, because we know we have inflammation because we have something-itis or whatever the issue is, if you want significant reduction, you should take a curcumin supplement that will drive that result, like a potent curcumin supplement. And the problem is supplements are unregulated. So everything we buy at the big box retailers, no one's watching what they're putting in there. Most of them are made abroad in countries that might not have standards. And so that's why I made mine in the US. I wanted to ensure that if I'm putting something in a doctor's hands, it'll drive the result. About the food, I think, in Ayurveda, we teach how to eat as opposed to what to eat. So a lot of people ask me, what diet should I eat? What do you do? And I believe that each of us has a different ethnic background, a different place in the world where our lineage is from. And so we're all built differently to digest different foods. I'm Indian. My family's from India. I can eat all the beans and lentils I want. And the part of India I'm from is predominantly vegetarian, from my kind of Indian, the group I'm from. So I couldn't process red meat easily if I wanted to. I could probably process white meat. It's something I'm considering because I'm so low in omega-3 because I'm vegetarian. And so I've done all this big blood work on myself. But if I'm vegetarian and forever have very low omega-3, that means I'm chronically inflamed. No matter what I do, I can do turmeric, but I'm not winning on the omega-3 aspect of inflammation in my system. And to me, that's not okay. So either I have to take fish oil and just get over it, or I have to eat fish high in omega-3. So these are big life decisions. I don't believe I should be making those for people. So the way I approach it with people is how to eat means the hours we eat. Can you finish dinner by 7 and not eat again till after 7 in the morning? That's a big one. That's going to reduce inflammation because it's going to improve sleep quality. When you eat, can you please eat sitting down and never standing up? When you eat, can you do it with consciousness? Try to turn off the phone. It's a hard one. Try to turn off the TV. That one I find requires so much discipline. When we sit down to eat, can we take a deep breath or two? So we drop our system into our parasympathetic nervous system, which means we're not in fight or flight, which means the food that we're going to eat will actually digest, absorb, and assimilate. Here in the West, we're so on the go. I eat in my car. Half the time I'm driving and eating. Half the time I'm in a meeting and eating, which is very unconscious eating. And afterwards, I can't remember if I ate. So it's so important if we can stop and eat. Sometimes I'll be on my phone and I'll see something like Law and Order or something violent happening. And I'll say, Shivani, you have to turn that off. Literally, your body will not digest this food. You're wasting your time, money, and effort and calories. Like, at least focus on what you're eating so you get that benefit. And then when it comes to the food, I think we all know sugar is poison. So the more we can reduce that one, the better. There's a lot more conversation around how alcohol is so damaging to the brain. So the more we can reduce that one, the better. We don't have to be perfect at it, but the better we can be, the better off we are for our systems. Dairy, conventional dairy for a lot of people isn't tolerable to the system, but a lot of people can function with goat's milk. I do great with feta cheese. I do great with goat's milk cheese. So I'm fine with that solution for myself. Gluten I can eat in Italy, but I can't eat it in America. So if you know that gluten is damaging to your system and problematic, maybe cut it for a while and heal the gut and then go back to it. Or decide how you want to live with that one. There's even enzymes now that will help you digest your gluten better in case you still want to eat the gluten. And then when it comes to meat is very personal. I say red meat only because I want people to test for their system if red meat is problematic to them. But if you're from Ireland or certain countries around the world that were always based in red meat, you have the gut to process it. And it might be necessary to your system. So I really ask people to interplay. Obviously, don't eat overly processed food. Source better, source good quality. But we can run tests on ourselves all the time. We can take food intolerance tests to know what's really bad for us. Or we can run these elimination diet tests and know, does my system really like that? Or does it always give me bloating, indigestion, and pain? Oh, that's a sign. Maybe I shouldn't keep doing that thing again. So that's how I look at it.
I want to ask a question about the elimination diet. Do you recommend eliminating everything and then introducing things back in, or is it better to, say, eliminate the gluten for 2 or 3 weeks and see how you feel, and then worry about the dairy or whatever? Because you hear people say, just take everything out and then introduce it in again, and that's hard.
Yes, that's hard.
It is hard. It's hard. And you know what? I would choose compliance over perfection any day. And so I've had people do my program. I have a 6-week program called Fusionary Method, and I'll have people do a 21-day detox within it. And I'll have level A, B, C. A is like, just do self-care. Just fill your cup. You are running on empty. B is 2 to 3 inflammatory foods. Will you give them up? And C is the whole enchilada. Most people are not ready for the whole enchilada. To do that kind of work cold turkey, you're setting yourself up for failure. Sometimes I'll get in the mood to do a juice fast and I'll just drop into it. And then that day, I'm like, I have a horrible headache. I want to eat the whole world. I don't understand why I chose to do this to myself. And I love detoxing. I can hold a 2-week juice fast if I want to, but I think it's about being prepared and preparing your world, preparing your mental world, and being ready for that. If I was talking to a general audience, which I think is what we're doing today,
yes,
but of people who are into fitness and health, I would say the moderate road is always the best road. Ayurveda says, choose moderation. So pick one food, give it up for 2 weeks. That alone is challenging to change our patterns. Sometimes people do take food intolerance tests with functional medicine doctors who I recommend to them. And then they come back to me and complain. And they're like, my test said I have to give up ginger and garlic and everything. I can't eat anything. And I'm like, well, if you printed a list of every vegetable on the planet, every fruit on the planet, every spice on the planet, and by the way, you're not vegetarian, so you can eat every meat, then you'd realize that we just have these food patterns and we have to be open to opening up a recipe book and trying new things. Or if you don't have time, there's Chipotle, there's poke bowl places. We can get huge varieties in our diet that remind us that there's lots of food we just don't buy in our normal pattern or cook with. And we're still going to get that nutrient density. We're still going to get that variety in. There's still so many flavors and options out there. We just have to be open to it.
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, you had mentioned your plantar fasciitis and some other health conditions that you've been able to control and improve over with using your methods. And I'm wondering, our listeners are women over 50 who want to be fit and strong. Can you talk to us a little bit about uterine health, or is there something that, as women over 50, something special that we should be doing?
Yeah. So I'm 42. Everyone I know is going through perimenopause. It's a huge topic. And then in the gym I work out with, most of my friends are in their 50s and 60s, and they're so strong and they're so vibrant. And so many of them came up to me the other day and they were like, listen, I need your turmeric. I'm in pain. My husband has joint pain. I need a sleep solution. And many women, I would say over the last 7 years, when I do like speaking on stage, they'll come up to me after and say, menopause is a beast and I am suffering. So my friend Kim at the gym was asking me, do you have a menopause solution? So finally I said, you know what? I'll make one for you. And so I designed a tea called Hormone Rebalance Tea. So I got into teas just in the last 2 or 3 years because I wanted to test a theory. Can I build a tea that's as effective as a supplement? For me, these are all theories until I can build it and then have a group of women try a product. So the women who've taken Hormone Rebalance Tea said it got rid of their night sweats and their hot flashes, which to me is huge.
That's impressive.
Right.
I don't want to suffer with those symptoms. Those sound horrible. And I know they're coming for me down the road.
It does interrupt your sleep. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then they need sleep tea. Then they need deep sleep formula, which I designed to help them keep everyone asleep because we all have sleep struggles of our own. So yeah, I think that when it comes to uterine health, I think all organs are tied together. All systems are tied together. Usually the culprits, the foundational culprits that are bothering any of our organs is inflammation, oxidation. Nowadays, we're talking about mitochondrial health as a big topic because we're not necessarily focused on our mitochondrial health, and that's the energy system machine inside of all of our cells. And so the way I look at it is the way I get to age with grace, keep my strength, keep my vitality, keep my brain, keep my energy is consistently reduce inflammation, consistently invest in good sleep, consistently be in nature, consistently practice gut health practices from Ayurveda, consistently do my self-care rituals from Ayurveda, and then consistently play with a diet, not be so mono. I find so many people are so mono in their diet. They're like, I eat salmon and salad every day. I eat 2 boiled eggs, no yellows every morning. And I eat my salad and soup every night. And I'm like, that is horrible. You can't do that. You have to have variety. I know what you're doing is easier for your brain because you just don't want to think about it. But what would be better is if every week you bought a new fruit and new vegetable that you don't think you'll like, and you still ate it, you still tried it, you still brought it into your hemisphere and your ecosystem. And so to me, that love of food, which many of us have a love of food, if we can play with it more, then we're giving our body nutrient density, nutrient variety, and the tools our cells need to keep us healthy over the long haul. Because honestly, I think I was reading so much about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's this morning. There's a lot of science behind curcumin for those two things. And there's someone in my office who's like, we should do a clinical trial on it. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. If our brain health is getting stripped down because we eat too little fat, we're not eating walnuts, we're not eating nuts and seeds, and we're not reducing inflammation, then really we're setting ourselves up for horrible end of life issues. And that's what I saw in my family growing up. Diabetes really killed off everyone in my family at the end in a way that I found unacceptable. And I thought, wow, I'm going to have to really build a different lifestyle than what I've been raised with. But that's my life coming for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is scary.
You've mentioned leaky gut several times. Can you sort of explain what leaky gut is and what steps we can take to improve that?
So leaky gut is permeability of the intestinal lining. It just means that we have a beautiful large intestine that's there to take our food, what we call food that we ingest, but the food-like products and food that we ingest, process it, try to get it through that system in a healthy, good way without damaging the gut lining, and then pull all the good for the body, get rid of all the bad, and then eliminate at the end. The problem we have is so much of what's created for us that's sold in a grocery store is not food. My own children will be like, Mommy, after you're giving me Oreos. And I sat them down once and I said, Oreos are chemicals. Those are chemicals that are made to smell and taste like food, sold in a box. That thing can probably last 100 years. They should have called it Legos and sold it at Toys R Us. It is not a food in my world. And there's a lot of foods like that. So the problem is we consume a lot of things that potentially cause this damage to the gut lining. Inflammation causes damage to the gut lining. And eventually that's like 100 paper cuts in our system. And then every time we send an inflammatory food through or a damaging food through, we're just irritating those paper cuts. And so if you can imagine hundreds of paper cuts in your gut lining, eventually they could get raw. Eventually they could bleed. And eventually what happens is food and things that we consume are going through the gut lining, getting into the bloodstream, and the body's like, what is happening? I'm under attack. And then we're going to have tremendous inflammatory responses. And then that's what we call an autoimmune condition. Why is the body having an automatic reaction to itself and battling with its own system? It's because we are wreaking this havoc within our own systems unknowingly. I mean, imagine I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner who does the work, and even I have leaky gut. I was so upset. When she said that, I said, first of all, you just validated why my immune system has never done what I thought it should do. And I have to guard my life every day. I have protocols upon protocols. If I'm going to fly, I mount this protocol. If I'm going to a party, I have that protocol. I have to rest after anything I do that's big to recover and not fall sick. And so I said, thank you for validating. That was a good term to give me so I understand my system. Now, how can someone who already loves her gut and does so much work still have an issue? And I was like, oh, it's inflammatory foods. It's food habits. It's stressors. There's still things I can improve. And so leaky gut, there's stool tests that functional medicine doctors order for us that can prove that you have leaky gut. I like data. So I love sending people to functional medicine because they'll order those. Even a lot of functional health coaches can do those types of tests. And when you have those stool tests, you can quickly understand what's wrong with your gut microbiome, what you need to fix. And if it's leaky gut, which over 50% of the country is believed to have leaky gut, then you can approach this in a holistic way. Now, one thing is sometimes when people are going for testing, I'm like, when you get the result of the test, assuming it's positive, what will be the reaction? Like, what will be the solution you're given? I ask that all the time in Western medicine. I'm like, well, when they tell you you have something-itis, what is your plan? A medication?
They give you a pill.
Right. Or would you like to already, knowing that likely that's the problem, start making some lifestyle changes? And so in the same way, assuming half of us have leaky gut, what are the steps? Cut inflammatory foods, eat oleation, like eat olive oil and certain foods that are going to support the gut lining. eat fiber before you're going to eat, and add great high quality medical grade probiotics. I have a specific company that I work with that I give to all my clients that I love. That's wonderful. And so we can rebuild the gut microbiome to be strong. So there's a lot of opportunity for all of us to have a healthier gut and thus a healthier life overall.
Now, you mentioned diabetes. What are the self-care techniques that you recommend to your clients to help reduce the risk of diabetes?
Number one, reduce inflammation. Inflammation is a root cause, so I take my turmeric. Stress is a big cause of diabetes, so I really try to manage my stress. Exercise, managing our obesity and our total body fat matters. So I have a really great gym I love. I just got a treadmill because I think I need to move even more for how much I sit all day now. I set a habit in place during the pandemic to walk for 45 minutes every night in nature. That's profoundly healing because it not just is movement. Nature heals all things. It's good for our mind. And it's a wonderful self-care habit to remove all the stressors of the day to set ourselves up for a great night of sleep. Obviously, sugar and certain foods are going to be problematic if we're going to overuse the pancreas and release insulin into the system too much. So I eat a more low carb, high protein diet. I'm not perfect at that, but I try. To me, diabetes is so pervasive in my family that if I don't do the work, my blood work will automatically flip to a high A1C and high cholesterol. It's just there. And so just in the last year, I started working much harder in my business and I've seen tremendous growth. My blood work is showing it. And that's so infuriating because I'm like, oh, come on.
You mean the stress has added to the damage towards diabetes?
Yeah. Even if I don't change my diet and I don't change how much I exercise, stress will push my numbers up. And I'll look at it and I'm like, wow, okay, just working harder and stressing will make you a pre-diabetic. That's crazy. That's my genetics. And I have to do more work then. So I sat with my functional medicine doctor. I was like, what else do you want me to do? She's like, take berberine. Let's take this other thing. Let's support your system in being more efficient. But that's where we kind of have to look at our lives and say, what do I want exactly? Do I want success more than I want my health? In my case, I really like making an impact. So it's a tough line to draw.
Working, if you like what you're doing, you want to work. Most people, I mean, forgetting money and that kind of thing. But if you're doing something you enjoy and you're working hard, there is stress to it, but it's not necessarily a negative thing.
The satisfaction.
But it's still affecting your body.
Yeah, it's how you receive it. And I think sometimes, like in my case, fusionary is beautiful. It impacts inherently. I have thousands of people who automatically get the product every month. They love it. So I have the impact I wanted to make in the world. I already have that. But I've been shown this new roadmap where it could get out there to everyone. And so I started doing trade shows. And trade shows are
they're very stressful, aren't they?
They're a lot of work. It's very extroverted because you have to be out there in the public and you're pushing, you're selling. So it grates against my nature. And so I did that last year heavily. And I thought, wow, I need to reformat how I'm doing what I'm doing so that I'm happier. And so I realized doing more online teaching, getting to be on podcasts and these things allows me to be me. I get to just teach and share and inspire. And this fits my personality. So I think it's so important that we remember how to honor our nature, and then we have less internal friction. And if we can reduce that internal friction, then the whole system can stay happier and healthier overall.
Yeah. Doing expos and conferences and those kinds of things are just exhausting because you're on all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're exhibiting. If you're attending, it can be difficult because there's long days and often you're not in a situation where you can eat the way that you want to, but to actually exhibit is very stressful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I've had to sit with myself and really have that internal conversation of, what are you doing this for? Why? How? You do it differently. Can you do it in a way that's healthy for you and beneficial? Because I want to eat on my schedule. I want to hydrate. I want to exercise. I don't want to travel as much. And I certainly don't want to be standing in heels for 12 hours a day talking to people.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. So that brings up, so you have started a podcast.
Yes.
And can you tell us the name of it and what we might expect to learn from it?
Sure. So I started it this year. It's called Fusionary Health Podcast. My goal was that because Fusionary Formulas is carried by hundreds of doctors, and I've gotten to meet them all personally, so I know how amazing they are, I wanted to highlight them so that we would understand the hundreds of different ways that we can approach our health. So I had an orthopedic doctor on, and our conversation was why we should get the knee replacement earlier. If you think about it, that's very counterintuitive to my whole platform and brand teaching. I don't ever say get surgery more, but I am about us doing the things we need to do to have vibrant health and mobility and function and quality of life. And so that was a really fascinating conversation of how sometimes people wait too long. Then they're so sedentary, and then the surgery goes worse. And it's a less than ideal situation. You could have had it 10 years earlier and gained 10 years of your life. I interview orthopedic doctors because a lot of them are so amazing who I know, chiropractors, naturopaths, all sorts of health coaches. There's so many different ways to approach health. And my goal is just to open everyone's mind that, yeah, I teach Ayurveda. I think Ayurveda is phenomenal. I will teach it till I die. But what are the ways that you could actually operationalize some of these tips and trips? Like, there's so many ways to approach health. And I wanted to show everyone that spectrum.
That's awesome.
And where can they find your podcast?
It's on Spotify and Apple. And
Okay.
I actually post the full videos on YouTube. So if you follow Fusionary Formulas on YouTube, my team is posting the full videos as well.
Okay. All right.
That's
But
cool.
anywhere where they list, anywhere where people find their podcasts, there you will be.
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand that you created a code for our listeners if they wanted to use your Fusionary Formula supplements. And thank you very much. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So if you visit fusionaryformulas.com, the code we created is Fit Strong Women, and that'll give you 15% off on your first order. You'll get free shipping through our system anyway. And it's a way for you to try. You know, I love people just trying something once and understanding, hey, did I get support from that? Did that work for me? If it worked for you, then be consistent with it. But I like to have people try new approaches to their health. So Fusionary is all herbs, spices, and minerals and ways that we can build our health every single day.
That's awesome.
Excellent. If our listeners want to follow you online, where should they go?
So my website is ShivaniGupta.com. It's Shivani, and most people know how to spell Gupta now. It's a popular name. Shivani Gupta. And then on social, I'm at Dr.Shivani Gupta on Facebook and Instagram and all those types of places. And YouTube, I have a lot of videos. And then for my supplement, it's fusionaryformulas.com and same name on all social and YouTube.
That's great.
Which website has all of the information on sleep and anti-inflammation?
The resources.
Yeah, all the resources.
Detox.
Yes, it's all on ShivaniGupta.com. It's all there, linked up. And
So if they want to do the detox, they can find it there.
yes.
Perfect.
And we'll put links to everything in the show notes too, so that people don't have to type everything in if they don't want to.
Awesome.
So, well, thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. It's been so interesting. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been wonderful. I've learned a lot.
Awesome.
We'll talk again. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. I thought it was interesting that she recommends using a turmeric supplement rather than food. I had not really heard that before, so I'm always sprinkling. I always think, sprinkle some
Right.
turmeric on there, but apparently
Right.
that's not really sufficient.
Yeah. Well, I've heard of the turmeric pills, but I just thought, I just like to eat it in my food. So, I'll sprinkle it, but I had no idea about the concentrations and never really thought too much about it. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
definitely learned something during this podcast for sure.
Yeah.
She also said that itis means inflammation. And all along, I thought itis meant chronic, like a chronic condition like bronchitis or sinusitis or arthritis.
Yeah. I looked it up, and itis is a suffix for forming names of inflammatory diseases. So she was correct.
I guess that's no surprise since she studied it so much.
Yeah. So that's why you get bronchitis and gastritis and whatever other itis you can think of.
Yeah. The other thing that I really liked that she talked about was getting inflammation relief by eliminating those 5 things, those 5 areas, that gluten, dairy, red meat, alcohol, and sugar. That was something I wrote down right away when she said it, because I thought that was important to know.
And I like that she said you could remove those things from your diet, get your body back into health, and then perhaps reintroduce them into your system so that it's not like saying, I will never, ever eat dairy again.
Well, yeah, it seems kind of drastic, but, at the same time, if that inflammation is causing all these other diseases or the itis, it's good. Maybe, eliminating one at a time for a few weeks to see the difference. I don't know. It's really quite interesting to me that those 5 have been shown to be the problem, if you're trying to get better, but also the ginger and the turmeric and, some of the other things that she talked about, cumin. Very interesting. I was almost thinking maybe I should get some of her supplements. I know she's giving a discount to our listeners, and you can get that discount by going to her website, Fusionary Formulas, and then, you shop and go through and decide what you want to purchase. And then you add one word, Fit Strong Women, in the code for a discount there. And I believe it's a significant discount. So,
and her website was
fusionaryformulas.com. And I'll put a link in the show notes too, so people can get to it.
Okay. Yeah. So check it out. I'd love to hear what our listeners have to say about today's episode.
Yes. Let us know if you've tried to deal with inflammation through changing food and lifestyle and what worked for you.
Or just let us know how you're doing on keeping fit and strong. Leave us a message. You can find us as Becoming Ellie on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Mastodon.
Be sure to join our private Facebook group where we encourage and support each other.
It was great talking with you today, Chris. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.